time. And joining me on the debate, Gaurav Bhatia, national spokesperson of the BJP, Suhail Seth, marketing guru, Karthik Reddy, spokesperson of the TRS, Ashutosh, political analyst, Siddharth Verma, IRTS officer, also joining me on the NewsHour tonight. But my first question goes to Lokesh Jindal. Lokesh Jindal, I want to ask you, Mr. Lokesh Jindal, is India a union of states or is it a nation? राष्ट्र का मतलब किंगडम होता है या राष्ट्र का मतलब नेशन होता है? क्या होता है according to the Congress party?
Constitutionally, it's a union of states. And when you're talking about the idea of nation, I just heard some person saying that the idea of nation was there in ancient times. That person don't know what history is. Nationality and nationalism as a concept is modern in origin. Please don't go back to a golden age that the idea of nation prevailed. All these forms of historiography that was popularized by K.P. Jaiswal, A.S. Altekar, they are nice to hear that there was a golden age in the past and everything modern has originated from the golden age. But this is not all true. The idea of modern nation state, it emanated in 19th century, and Congress nurtured this idea via which India as a modern nation state emerged. So when I'm talking about
nation state, can you tell me, is it a nation or a union of states? इतना ज्ञान मत दीजिए कि overload हो जाए. Nation or union of states? Please, it is a short question with two options. You have to only press one option. Nation or union of states?
But as a nation, it is an idea. So please try to understand there's a huge difference between nation and state. And as a nation state, India incorporates both an idea as well as a union of states.
Siddharth Verma, हमारी पढ़ाई तो कोई काम नहीं आई. What have they taught you in Cambridge? Can you respond to Lokesh Jindal? Because I think the Congress party is confused between nation, nation state and other definitions. I can just read out the first part of the preamble of the Constitution, which clearly points out that India is a nation, but somehow Rahul Gandhi seems to have escaped that particular mention. And in the preamble where it says, "We the people of India having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic and to secure to all its citizens justice, liberty, equality, fraternity, assuming the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation." But Mr. Rahul Gandhi hasn't read the preamble. Do you think so, Siddharth Verma?
So the Constitution, came into being in the 1950. Let's go three years back. Even Jawaharlal Nehru's speech of Tryst of Destiny on the midnight of 14th of August 1947, he clearly mentions that India is a nation. Let's go further back. 1893, Swami Vivekananda went to Chicago, clearly mentions that he has come from a nation and how he's proud of his values, of his cultural values and the diversity of his country. Let's go further back. Adi Shankaracharya, he established 4 mutts in 4 directions. Of what exactly? Odisha, Uttarakhand, Gujarat and Karnataka. North, South, East, West. These were directions of a nation because people associated with this nation. We go further back, and I talked about this in that event as well, that Chanakya also made it show India had a lot of Mahajanpads, but he made it show to his students that they belong to a Rashtra, which is Bharat. He also made it show to the kings under which he worked as the Prime Minister that I am working for you as long as you are putting the interest of the Rashtra, which is Bharat. As soon as you start working against it, so look, you can interrupt me and be so intolerant about the idea of Bharat. I don't know what's the intolerance about the idea of Bharat. Why has India, despite so much diversity, so many different regions, been able to survive as a democratic a liberal democracy after 1947? Is it just because we wrote a preamble? Is it just because we wrote those values in a legal document? No, because these values have existed in India's society for thousands of years. And this is the idea which we have grown up with. And to say that these values don't exist and somehow on the midnight of 15th August 47 or 26 January 1950, these values, just spontaneously emerged in, more than 700 million people, nobody actually believes in it. And the response of my exchange with Mr. Gandhi yesterday on social media, on, interacting with other people I've talked to, I think there's an overwhelming understanding with the people of India that they belong to an ancient Bharatiya civilization, which has been in existence for thousands of years.
So Lokesh Jindal, can you tonight have the courage to say that India is a nation, a Rashtra, or do you still think it's a kingdom and a union of states?
Mr. Verma, you must be knowing about Article 1 of the Constitution, which clearly states India shall be a union of states. And secondly, let me explain the term nation. Now, nation as a concept, culturally, it is an evolving concept. Right from the ancient times when the Indo-Aryans, they came and they established a Vedic culture, a Puranic culture, followed by all forms of Advaitavad, the infusion of Sufis, Islamics, and as well as advent of modern ideas in the 19th century BC, there was always some form of a give and take that was taking place between India and the rest of the world. So the nation as a concept, it has evolved. And in the modern times, the idea that evolved in the 19th century incorporated the concept of unity in diversity. That is, all those people who are inhabiting within the territory of India had inherited a composite culture which would be traced down to millennials.
Lokesh Jindal, I want to come back to Mr. Verma. And Siddharth Verma, I want to ask you just one small question which will settle this debate. I want to ask you, was Rahul Gandhi speaking in the 18th century, or was he speaking in the 21st century? Are we going to now revisit this entire, historical perspective that is being given by Lokesh Jindal to protect his boss? The fact is that he was speaking in 2022 and he doesn't understand the word called nation. Did you find that surprising?
Absolutely, and not just nation, but the fact is that Mr. Jindal wants to look at Article 1, which Article 1 actually sets the tone for the Constitution because it mentions the territories of India, which is the reason why it says it's a union of state. And also it uses the term union, not a federation. But you're not willing to look at the preamble. I don't understand why. That you're cherry picking some things to actually peddle a narrative. And also, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar clearly said that India is an indestructible union of destructible states. So states are not, India is not a federation in the United States, sense of things. It does not have autonomous states that have more control over their laws, they had to fight a civil war to actually, in the north and the south, to actually build a nation. So I think we are trying to import some ideas and superimpose it on India, which is a completely different kind of nation. And that's the reason why we are the oldest surviving civilization. And we are trying to import the idea of the nation-state industrial revolution from Europe. And this is just a cover-up for what has already happened because you no longer have a defense.
Well, so let me get in Mr. Gaurav Bhatia. Mr. Gaurav Bhatia, you are a senior advocate. I want to ask you, why is Mr. Rahul Gandhi and why is the Congress party talking about Article 1 of the Constitution and forgetting the preamble completely, which gives them the introduction to the word nation? Is this deliberate? Is this lack of understanding of the way India works, or is this just being irreverent for the sake of being irreverent?
Navika, the reason is very simple. Rahul Gandhi was told to read the Indian Constitution, but he picked up the Italian Constitution. And let me explain it in a very basic manner. I will go by what the Honorable Supreme Court said in context of Kashmir. The Honorable Supreme Court said these people were saying Kashmir should be independent. The Supreme Court made it very clear there is no vestige of sovereignty for Kashmir also outside the Constitution of India. And our Constitution of India makes it clear that India is a quasi-federal country. It is not a federal structure like the US where the states have independent rights. Rather, in India, we can redefine the boundaries of the state. 1. 2. The citizenship, the defense, the territory of India is defined by the Constitution and it tilts towards the central system. Third, the residuary powers lies with the parliament. It doesn't lie with the states. But the problem is, Rahul Gandhi knows nothing about the Constitution and he has been a member of parliament, but he doesn't even know the number of seats that exist in the parliament because he said, please, can you be quiet? Can you be quiet?
Don't tell me about
Did I interrupt you?
Mr. Lokesh Jindal, Mr. Lokesh Jindal,
Navika, this is
Mr.
unfair.
Lokesh Jindal, Gaurav
Please ask him to
Bhatia
be
has a
quiet.
sore throat. Let's not be inconsiderate. Let him complete his point. I'll give you time to rebut, my friend. Yes, Gaurav.
Yes. Navika, thank you. Now, the main important feature is the residuary power. The residuary power, unlike the US Constitution in India, lies with the parliament. But let me come to another point. आज पता चला कि kerosene oil भारतीय राजनीति का कौन है मिट्टी का तेल, and I will tell you 3 examples. Any power that is inimical to India, Rahul Gandhi is seen there with a kerosene oil. First, today he was seen with Jeremy Corbyn, who does not recognize our sovereignty and interferes in matters pertaining to Kashmir. Second, when Article 370 was abrogated, Rahul Gandhi's statement was on the front page of the dossier of Pakistan given to the UN. And third, China. Congress party signed a MOU with China. I am asking Rahul Gandhi, why is it that all powers that try to weaken the country are seen shaking hands with you? You have lust of power, but not at the cost of weakening our country. And this country under the leadership of Shri Narendra Modi ji will grow stronger step by step, and you will not be able to alter that. Thank you.
Well, let me get in Mr. Karthik Reddy. Mr. Karthik Reddy, you know, people in opposition have the right to question the government, to criticize the government and question the policies. That's the job of the opposition. But is it the job of the opposition to undermine India when they are abroad? Is it the job of the opposition to set a false narrative about India? Is it just ignorance, irreverence, or is it just complete arrogance that makes Mr. Rahul Gandhi say the statements that he does when he is abroad? When he says, I have a problem because in this country we are actually putting kerosene all over the country. I have a problem with this country because 20 crore people are being set aside. You know, when you're talking about 20 crore, what about the 80 crores that you fail to talk about, Mr. Rahul Gandhi? And secondly, the question is, when you go abroad and begin to make statements like that, you know, India is not a nation, India is a union of states, and Rashtra actually means kingdom. Do you think this is lack of knowledge and understanding of the idea of India?
Nice to see you again, Navika.
Nice to see you too. Good evening.
Rahul Gandhi, what he said today at Cambridge was arrogance with heavy dose of ignorance. I feel sorry for the Congress party today, honestly. As an ex-congressman who contested on a Congress ticket a few years back, I empathize with the party. It is completely lost, it's confused, and it's completely lost its plot.
Let's talk about that.
Rahul Gandhi today, when you lose elections, Navika, we do not lose the love for the nation. We should remember this. अब 8 साल में पूरा देश जल जा रहा है, 8 साल से पहला पूरा ठीक था. This hypocrisy, people do notice. Today, Rahul Gandhi, what he said about India as a group of nations or whatever It was not really coherent for me. India was a nation. India is a nation. The idea of India will always stay. As long as there was civilization, the concept of Bharat was within us. We never lost an idea of Bharat. The idea of Bharat was Mr. Jindal, please let me speak. I am on a earphone.
Mr. Jindal, which part of Mr. Karthik Reddy's statement is causing you so much discomfort? The man has said absolutely true things. The man was a part of your party and, just to keep his sanity intact has walked out. And if he's showing you the mirror, maybe you should. You should, listen to some home truths, Mr. Lokesh Jindal, instead of interrupting him.
So let me finish, Mr. Lokesh. You can talk all you want. Let me finish. You do not lose the love for the nation when you lose an election. Let me say this. And this is not the first time, Mr. Lokesh, Rahul Gandhi does this. You remember the JNU incident? You remember when there was certain terrorist attacks, what Rahul Gandhi said? You remember right now what he's doing right now in Cambridge and doing right now with Jeremy Corbyn? Let me tell you, if you undermine the idea of India, you're undermining yourself. You should not do this, especially on foreign seas. And Congress party is suffering because of this. I have lost an election because of something like this. Let me tell you. And the nation suffers when an opposition party as large as the Congress party has to resort to this sort of things. And again, I feel sorry for somebody like you that you know it's wrong and you have to come on national television and support the leader or take his side.
Lokesh Jindal, tell me one thing that Rahul Gandhi said which you think is right. Is India not a nation? Is India a union of states? Is India ready to burst into flames? I want to ask you which of these three is correct. And also, while you are at it, explain to us why is Jeremy Corbyn such a huge friend of Mr. Rahul Gandhi?
Now let me tell you, if we buy the narrative of BJP that India is a Hindu Rashtra, then please tell me as per international law.
Who said Hindu Rashtra? Who said Hindu Rashtra? You have an obsession with the word Hindu and Hindutva. You have an obsession, sir. Nobody said anything about a Hindu Rashtra. We just said Rashtra means nation.
On what basis do we lay claim over northeastern states? It is only the secular credentials of India which allow it to lay claim over sovereignty over those states which are having Muslim majority. Secondly, what about this particular government? It has problems with Muslims.
Do not degrade this to Hindu-Muslim discussion.
Now, even the numbers they were manipulated.
The idea of India is not relegated only to discussion of Hindu and Muslim.
Following this in 2020,
do not do this. And please tell your peer leader that a concept of India is not 70-year-old.
Constant rhetoric. And US has moved closer towards China.
I do not understand what my friend is saying.
India has moved closer to China. Well, Suhail said, arrogance, ignorance, you're good with adjectives. What do you think the Congress party is currently going through? Which phase?
It's going through a phase of irrelevance. And I have no truck with any political party. I can't be accused of favoring BJP, TRS, or anyone for that matter. There are three things that have gone wrong with the Congress, and even a person of Lokesh's intellect and integrity will agree with me. Number one, when you go abroad, you never bash your country. Never. A. B, when you're a representative, now, Mr. Reddy, when I need your support, I'll ask for it. But it's so kind of you to offer it.
I was a little excited.
It's so kind of you to offer it. Number two, when you go abroad, you are going abroad as a representative of the people of India. This gentleman's grandfather, as Siddharth alluded to, said the following. Long years ago, we made a tryst with destiny. When the world sleeps, India will awaken to life and freedom. He didn't say a nation of states. He ends the speech again using India. Number three, I think it doesn't behove of anyone either on this panel or elsewhere, irrespective of their political affiliations, to be exultant or to cry loud saying, oh, look at what Rahul Gandhi has done. When you go abroad, it's easy to shame your people. because it's what a lot of the Western press wants to hear. They are envious, they are jealous, and they can't stomach the rise of India today as a global superpower. I'm delighted that India today is a superpower that stands tall in the comity of nations. And I'm sure even Lokesh Jindal is delighted as an Indian. We are Indians first. You could be Congress TRS later. Number two, it is not about patriotism. It's not about jingoism. It's about maturity. But you know, Navika, there's a psychological reference to this, which even Ashutosh will agree, because he was with another psycho person before. The psychological reference is as follows. You can be relevant and you can be discarded, but irrelevance is no man's land. Today what has happened is the Congress has become irrelevant because of a leader who refuses to believe. Lokesh, did I interrupt you? The other good thing about the Congress is that over time it has become ill-mannered. I didn't interrupt you, so give me the benefit of not being interrupted. The second thing with the Congress is that the Congress doesn't realize that even when its so-called leader goes abroad, he is a representative of the people. He's a member of India's parliament. Then he sups with the devil in the form of Jeremy Corbyn, who has questioned Kashmir, who has questioned our idea of India. And you know, for all you people who keep talking about nationhood versus union of states, why don't you start reading Shashi Tharoor's books for a change? Why don't you read Sunil Khilnani's book about the idea of India? The problem with the Congress is that instead of leaders, they don't even have readers. So no one has read anything. You know, Siddharth made a very important comment about the Constitution. The Constitution's heart and soul, as Nani Palkhiwala would have said, rests in its preamble. It is for the people, by the people of India. Obviously, every country is a union of states. But when you say a union of states is bigger than the country, you are suggesting three things. A, there is divisiveness, which there is none. Number two, there is subterfuge, there is none. Number three, there is backdoor entry, there is none. I want to ask my good friend Lokesh, who is not a good friend, but I think he will become a good friend because he will see reason one day, and he too will join the TRS if Karthik is willing to spare his seat for him. Let me tell you, Lokesh, what is going wrong, my friend. As an Indian, you don't bash your country when you're abroad. You just don't do it. You defend your country. Every country has its flaws. Every country has its weaknesses. But you've got to salute Narendra Modi for what he's done. Hate the man as much as you want. But for God's sake, he didn't sneak in through the back door. He doesn't belong to a family of entitlement. He doesn't come from a pedigreed surname. He won 2 goddamn elections. He hasn't said that, oh, I've just sneaked through the back door. Give the man, 1 minute, Lokesh, again, my friend, I don't know which school you went to, but the school that I went to, we were taught never interrupt someone who's speaking, especially when the person is older than you. So just follow that dictum. Fourth thing, Navika, and you've raised a very important point today on Times Now. This is not about national pride. It is about the national narrative. Sometimes we all have the ability to spin the narrative in a manner that suits us for political desperation. Today what you saw was a group of 3 people who I can see on the screen. Sam Petroda, irrelevant, 1997. Jeremy Corbyn, irrelevant, 2020. Rahul Gandhi is a perpetual Renan Martin, continuous tense, irrelevant person. You don't seek relevance through controversy. You don't seek relevance, Lokesh, through desperation. And you certainly don't seek relevance by abusing your country.
So let me get in. Let me get in, Ashutosh ji. He hasn't got a word in.
Of course,
Ashutosh, 1 minute.
He has dealt with the worst of the lot. Ask him. He has gone through fire.
Ashutosh ji, I want to ask you just 2 things. One that Suhail Seth touched upon. The other is, of course, Suhail Seth touched upon the fact on whether Rahul Gandhi is irrelevant, and you're a former journalist, former editor. I want to ask you, you would have heard stories from the Congress party that you can't tell Rahul Gandhi anything. In meetings, even in Chintan Shivers, he's on his cell phone, barely looks at leaders of his own party, doesn't engage with anybody, doesn't talk. 2 out of the 3 days of the Chintan Shivir, sat inside his room, came for meetings, went away. Third day, came in for a dinner and mingled a bit and made one speech. I want to ask you, kingdom or राष्ट्र ये सेम है, पर्यायवाची है? इज द मीनिंग ऑफ राष्ट्र इक्वल टू किंगडम? आप बस इतना समझा दीजिए, क्योंकि हिंदी में मैं आपको गुरु मानती हूँ।
मुझे हिंदी में बोलना होगा, इंग्लिश मानता हूँ। सुहेल सेठ मेरे अच्छे दोस्त हैं, लेकिन सुहेल सेठ, यू शुड नेम द नेम। आप इतनी देर से नाम नहीं ले रहे, मुझे इस बात को लेकर थोड़ी हैरानी हो रही। थोड़ा नाम तो ले लेते तो अच्छा रहता ना, कि मैं किसके साथ नाम, जिसके बारे में कह रहे थे कि मैं उनके साथ था, थोड़ा नाम लेते तो अच्छा रहता ना। खैर, एनीवे, लेट्स नॉट गेट इनटू दैट। सी, फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, आई डू नॉट एग्री विद Sahel on this that Rahul Gandhi is a perpetual irrelevant person, because if he had been so irrelevant, well, you would not have spent so much time talking about Rahul Gandhi, and you would not have, Navika, done a debate on this subject. So that means Rahul Gandhi is still relevant. Whatever relevance is, that's a different thing altogether. But I agree with Suhail on one particular issue. That issue is that Rahul Gandhi and his team, who's involved into this communication strategy, the marketing strategy, should learn few things from Suhail. They should appoint Suhail as one of the communication advisors. If you had gone over there and you are meeting with such people who will get a negative publicity, I think who has organized this show and who has organized this meeting with Jeremy Corbyn, I think that person should be sacked in the Congress party itself. So it's a larger issue. The larger issue with the Congress party, which has failed to understand that BJP is smarter in terms of communication, in terms of strategizing, in terms of countering the main opposition political party, and that's where they get. Congress has to learn. And I'll request my dear friend Lokesh also, there is no point justifying which cannot be justified. If Rahul Gandhi does not understand the today ecosystem, the political ecosystem, and if he still go out and blabber here and there, and he think that this is a good PR exercise, I think he's living in an old world. The world has changed 2014.
Well, so let me get in Siddharth Verma. Who were the organizers? How was Rahul Gandhi there? Since you are at the university, you would know the organizers. And do you think it was Sam Pitroda who organized?
No. Sam Pitroda has no clue. Sam Pitroda can't even organize his Oyster card on the London Tube. So don't give Sam Pitroda more credit. I think Lokesh Jindal organized the whole trip, and Lokesh is now defending Rahul because Lokesh is a former Cambridge graduate. He's done his tripos.
Lokesh, would you want to respond to that?
Please allow me to reply. Sir, first of all, you told me about my school. My school taught me that you must always stand by the truth. Now, when you have been boasting about the Prime Minister, now let me tell you, the WHO claimed that 47 lakhs died, whereas the Prime Minister had outrightly lied about it. Secondly, India's credit rating agency has been going down from Baa2 to Baa3. India's HDI rank has been dropped to 131. Even RSS, it has downgraded India in the Press Freedom Index. Now, all these parameters are also international. Now, when you're talking about Joe Biden and all these other international leaders praising India, the whole world knows what is the underlying imperative underneath it. So when Rahul Gandhi is out there in London, he's trying to tell the world that how the democracy that Congress
May I interrupt you? Lokesh, may I interrupt you? At least I'm being polite. May I interrupt you? I'm asking you 3 questions. A, Lokesh Jindal, are you proud of being an Indian? Yes or no?
I am.
Number 1. Number 2, do you agree that India has flaws and that India can attempt to overcome those flaws?
It does, and it has overcome. It has emerged as a successful democracy.
Number 3, do you think in the comedy of nations, as the world's largest, second largest nation and democracy, we did a good job with COVID? Do you, Lokesh Jindal, agree or disagree?
No, we failed in the
Fair. So out of 3 questions, you have agreed to 2. 2, it means you disagree with your leader.
2, it means you disagree with your leader. 2, it means you disagree with your leader. 2, it means you disagree with your leader. 2, it means you disagree with your leader. 2, it means you disagree with your leader. 2, it means you disagree with your leader. 2, it means you disagree with your leader. 2, it means you disagree with your leader. 2, it means you disagree with your leader. 2, it means you disagree with your leader. 2, it means you disagree with your leader. 2, it means you disagree with your leader. 2, it means you disagree with your leader. 2, it means you disagree with your leader. 2, it means you disagree with your leader. 2, it means you disagree with your leader. 2, it means you disagree with your leader. 2, it means you disagree with your leader. 2, it means you disagree with your leader. 2, it means you disagree with your leader. 2, it means you disagree with your leader. Now let me tell you.
Now make sure this recording of this program is not seen by Rahul.
No, you cannot put it like this. Let me tell you what the truth is. The truth was, when the people, they were dying of oxygen, when the people, they were needing vaccines, the Prime Minister of the country was...
Lokesh Jindal, we've been through that. We've debated that several times. Today, I only want to understand from you, राष्ट्र का मतलब क्या होता है? राष्ट्र का मतलब क्या होता है? मुझे ये समझा दीजिए. Kingdom?
Madam, kingdom, Rashtra matlab, even in the Sangam age there is mention of, in the Vedic age there is mention of Rashtra, but over there the Rashtra was territory. Please understand, when I'm talking about Rashtra as a concept, it emerged in the modern times and it has undergone...
Rashtra, concept... Karthik Reddy, I'm coming to you, Suhail. Karthik Reddy is raising his hand. Karthik Reddy, Rashtra, Telangana Rashtriya Samiti, spokesperson wants to come in and describe what Rashtra means. I will give him the chance first. Karthik Reddy, please.
Karthik is younger than me, he will yield. The only nation state we refer to in contemporary history is Singapore. It is referred to as a nation state.
Nation state.
That is the phrase we use for Singapore. Yes, my good friend Karthik, please go right ahead.
Before we read the constitution, I think, Navika, we should also read the Puranas and the Granthas of India, the Vedas and all. The concept of India has not been new. Should not be new. Whoever think that India is a conglomeration of states which the British left behind, you are in the hangover of the British Raj. We have always been a nation. Point one. Point two. Point two. Please, Lokesh, let me speak. Point two. Ashutosh and Suhail, we were talking about relevance and irrelevance of Rahul Gandhi. The sad part of Indian democracy today is the opposition party of India is led by a leader called Rahul Gandhi, who still is relevant because the Congress party is still relevant.
Rahul Gandhi.
If the party would have been irrelevant, we would have not been speaking of dear Rahul Gandhi. Lokesh, please have the decency, let me speak, buddy. Please, I do not understand what you're telling me. I'm sure the feed is going all scrambled. Please let me speak.
Calm down, Lokesh. It irritates viewers when they can't understand, when two people speak. Please.
Navika, we as TRS party, we have heavy differences with Narendra Modi. How he managed the federalism, how he is trying to arm twist our FRB limits, how he has handled the commerce and the finance of this country, how he has handled the social and economical structure of this country. We have issues with Narendra Modi. And we have not made any problems about it. And we've been open about it. And we will talk about these things in the periphery of India. The point here is, when we travel abroad, we do represent our country, whatever political affiliation might ours be. And we should hold some decorum and decency when a foreign journalist asks you a question which might be degrading to the idea of India itself. I would fight to the nail, and I'm telling you, that journalist would have a tough time. If somebody who asked me a question directly indicating the integrity and the respect of my country, that journalist is going to have it.
Well said. Gaurav Bhatia, respond to Karthik Reddy and a very mature stand that he's taken.
No, absolutely. I think we have to agree with what he's saying. That you may have a different ideology, you may belong to a political party, but when you are on foreign soil, you are representing your country. And Rahul Gandhi also had a chance, Navika. He could have told the world that 195 crore vaccine doses have been given. He could have told the world that 80 crore Indians have been given free ration for 2 years. He could have spoken about 11 crore toilets that have been built. But he decided just to make a story which is propaganda. He said democracy in India doesn't thrive anymore. I want to ask Rahul Gandhi, if you do not trust the Election Commission of India, the Prime Minister, the judiciary, the EVMs, whom do you trust, Mr. Rahul Gandhi? And the saddest part is, he said the state of affairs in India can be compared to the state of affairs in Ukraine. Is it true? I think India was the first country to ensure that every citizen comes back not just the Indian citizen. The Indian government was even helping citizens of other countries.
That's the point.
That is the proactive approach of the government.
The point really is, and Suhail said, I want to give you the last word. Suhail said, we may have different opinions. We may even have different meanings of Rashtra. You know, for some it may mean a nation, for some it may mean a kingdom. Well, it's their choice. The dictionary be damned. But can we have a different idea of India? Can we have a position where we look down upon India and have a negative narrative about India abroad?
Let me say this towards the end of your program. India is a civilizational legacy. India is full and has been replete with civilizational value adds. Manu in Manu Smriti talked about Daan before the Warren Buffetts and the Bill Gates even knew what the hell Daan was. Today, like every other nation, India is evolving and will continue to evolve. Have we done well? Answer is yes. Have we stood tall and proud? The answer is yes. Have we made mistakes? The answer is yes. Are we willing to accept we've made mistakes? The answer is yes. My only plea is that I'm not asking you to be jingoistic or patriotic. Patriotism is the last refuge of the scoundrel. All I'm asking you to do is look where we are from where we've come. And it's been a fabulous journey. Look where we will go. We will go with optimism, not with negativity. We will become even bigger if we believe in our country and in our people, not by decrying our country and decrying our people. That's my only comment.
That's what India stands for, and that's what each Indian needs to stand for. We may say that we've not achieved everything, and that will be the truth. Yes, we have miles to go before we sleep. But to say that India has kerosene all over, waiting to burst into flames, is really painting India so negatively that even people abroad will not believe Mr. Rahul Gandhi. Thank you very much to my panelists for joining me on debate number 1. Going across